And welcome inside your Odyssey app, wherever you may be in the world, and live coast to coast on the BetQL network. You are locked in to a week 2 episode of BetQLU. Alongside myself, Chris Mack, you got my friend RJ Choppy in Dallas, you got our friend John Martin down in Memphis, and we are ready to tackle what we saw in the first full week of college football. And of course, look ahead to what's coming at us this weekend. But guys, I'm going to do it. I'm going to put my hand up and start things and say, hi, my name is Chris, and I did not believe in Coach Prime. And then everyone else can go around the room and say, hi, Chris. And it'll be like a Buffs Anonymous meeting to start things out here. John, hi, my name's Chris. I didn't believe in Colorado.
Hey, Chris, man, this is a tough one here to talk about because it feels like the coverage has gotten ridiculous and the reaction has gotten ridiculous. I think two things are going to be true here. Deion did a better than expected job in week 1, and TCU is going to be unranked by the end of the season. I mean, RJ was sort of talking about that, last week. I just think both things can be true here. He benefited from probably a perception with TCU, and he took advantage of that in Deion Sanders. And I think we're going to learn a lot more about Colorado this weekend than last in a weird way. But look, as impressive a start, as you can probably ask for them. And we talked about how, you completely overhaul that roster. You can do that. But it's one freaking game, man. Like, why are we acting like they won the Pac-12? Why are we doing this whole thing with you didn't believe and you didn't believe and you didn't believe? Bro, it's one game. You have 11 left.
Yeah, I mean, like you're 100% right. But like, this isn't our first day on social media. We know the deal. Like, it's all about overreaction, and
Yep.
that's the beauty and the curse of living in the 2023 sports world. I'll give this about TCU. Like, they were playing this game blind. Like, they had no film. They had never seen any of these guys play together. They didn't know really what to look for. Sonny Dykes told us on my radio show they didn't watch a single second of Colorado football from last year. Not a single second. So not a frame of film. So they were flying blind. They're also incredibly, I think, overrated. And I think we massively underrated what Colorado actually is. I mean, Shador's a good player. Like, he's probably going to play on Sunday. Travis Hunter is holy hell,
Dog.
man. Like,
Yeah.
What it was 100 degrees on Saturday. Okay, I was sweating in the pool while this game was going on. It was 100 degrees. It was hot out there, and he played 140 snaps. I didn't believe. I didn't believe. And me and Ed Werder, we didn't believe.
But it's not time to weigh in on that yet. Like, there's still, it's the first game of his coaching tenure. Like, all precincts are not reporting on Deion Sanders.
Well, let's ask this question. Let's ask this question then, guys. Like, how much stock do we put in it? Like, and moreover, it's not just how much stock do we put into it. Like, that's an important question. How much stock do we put into Colorado upsetting TCU the way they did? But more importantly, can we find some value in this now where the overreaction to things, like their win total moves 2 full wins from 3.5 to 5.5. Is that realistic or no? Their odds for a Pac-12 championship go all the way down to, where did it go? All the way down to 2,500. Is there an opportunity to make any money, or has that flown the coop now because the overreaction is wild? Should we wait and see if there's an overreaction, a swing back the other way now, based on if they can't beat Nebraska at home, and Nebraska looked terrible last weekend. I mean, classic Big Ten. What, did somebody kick a field goal? Oh, that kind of game. I mean, if Colorado doesn't beat the Huskers at home now, is there going to be such a wild overreaction back the other way that, you can bet futures on a week-to-week basis now on Colorado based on how wildly they're going to fluctuate, Choppy.
I mean, I think they're all right. Look, I mean, I'm just looking at their schedule, and I see like, all right, they could beat Colorado State. You know, they could take down both Arizona schools and Washington State. Like they could do that. I could see them winning that. They're not going to beat Oregon State. They're not going to beat Utah. They won't beat USC or Oregon. And you know, and again, maybe they will. Maybe they will. Maybe they have. This is the best team that we've ever had assembled. And Deion is the best coach ever. But you know, there still is a ceiling for this team. I think at this moment, the time to jump is probably past. I don't think. I mean, 3.5's low, man. That's a low number. Yeah. Like that's the number. That was the number to get. If they had gotten it at 4.5, I think you could maybe talk yourself into it. But you know, I only see like guarantee. I don't see guarantee anything, but I mean maybe 3 more wins in the schedule because they do play 4 or 5 ranked teams still.
Yeah, I was going to say, Chris, just real quick, I could add to that. The money to be made on Colorado is by fading them at this point. You know, you're not going to find a two-way market, right? Like on the books that, you know, on BetMGM, there's not going to be a two-way market on Colorado to win the Pac-12. But like starting this week with Nebraska, you know, I mean, if you just sort of think about, okay, what really changed from, you know, all summer and last week? I mean, for Nebraska to be an 8-point favorite, 7.5-point favorite, to now swing the entire different way, you're getting an insane amount of value, as ugly as it feels right now on Nebraska. And I get it. You're getting 10, 12, 15 points of value on Nebraska right now. And again, you see these reports about all this money, all these tickets on Colorado, and yet that number is frozen. That number is stuck. And I think that just tells you so much about whether that money is respected or not. And the answer is it's not respected. So I just think the value in betting Colorado right now is fading them because you're getting incredible numbers on Nebraska compared to where it was, you know, a week or two ago.
Yeah, I'll be interested too, guys, to see like where is there a tipping point where, okay, to your point that each of you just made, that there's a chance they beat Nebraska. There's certainly a chance they beat Colorado State. And then they go up against this back-to-back Oregon USC scenario where going into it's not unrealistic to suspect that going into Oregon, they're 3-0 and what? I mean, what are they looking at? Maybe only less than a touchdown dog, maybe, depending on how well they play these next 2 weeks. If you're Oregon, if you're Ducks better, or that's the next opportunity I guess I look at is if I'm on the Ducks in a couple of weeks and Colorado has won these last 2 weeks, they're 3-0, and the whole world is behind Deion on this push. And again, the number is low enough. I think you're right, John. That's where the opportunity lies. If Oregon's only laying 6.5 to Colorado at home, then we jump on it. And then if we get burned again, hey, we get burned again. But I think to Choppy's point too, I don't think their record against the ranked teams is what's going to tell us whether this has actually turned into anything or not. And that's their first opportunity to play a ranked team is a few weeks in Oregon.
And look, and I'll be perfectly honest. Like my biggest beef with this whole thing, it's not the social media push because like that's expected. Mm-hmm. How do they go from the worst team besides UMass to ranked by beating the 17th ranked team by 3 points on a team that we all knew was bad? Like that was not very good. Right. Like that's the issue. Like how do they go to be ranked? Like that was very odd. It was very, very odd to me that they just jumped that. I mean, they jumped 100 spots for crying out loud.
Yeah. I mean, it's just.
Well, I mean, if we want to talk about jumping spots and people jumping to weird spots and polls, this actually segues nicely into the other thing, which is I was going to ask, what's the bigger surprise? Colorado winning or Clemson losing the way they did? Clemson loses and still stays 3 spots ahead of Duke in the coaches poll, which make of that what you will. But, I mean, for Clemson to lose outright as 12.5-point favorites over Duke, I understand it's a better Duke team, but all of a sudden there are 1,000,001 questions about Dabo, whether he's doing things right or not in Death Valley. And I think rightfully the questions about the rest of the ACC, after the way Florida State took care of LSU, they become the clear favorites. But the rest of the ACC, is there a legit challenger to Florida State in the ACC, John?
I mean, Duke. I mean, it ain't Clemson. It ain't Clemson. I mean, I think the time to have that talk about Dabo is now. He's getting left behind. I think the game has actually passed him by in terms of, the state of college football today. And when we sort of do the autopsy on his time at Clemson, I think we're going to sit here and we're going to say, man, when Dabo didn't have a market-setting quarterback, when he didn't have a generational talent at quarterback, he didn't do that much. I mean, yeah, he won the ACC with Taj Boyd, okay, but he wasn't a national championship contender unless he had Trevor Lawrence or Deshaun Watson, which, in all fairness, we could do that if you give us Deshaun Watson or Trevor Lawrence at quarterback, right? I mean, it's really not that hard to figure out. He doesn't do the transfer portal. He doesn't do the NIL. He's getting left behind. His offense is it's painful. It's painful to watch Clemson play football right now. So, look, we talk about how college football is changing, with the transfer portal and NIL. And I think one layer to that is coaches who are, malleable, coaches who are flexible, who can, adapt through multiple eras. And Dabo, to me, has shown us definitively he is not one of them.
Yeah, Choppy, I look at this now. The ACC odds, how about this? Florida State, like I said, the clear favorite at BetMGM, plus 110 to win the conference. But sitting there tied at 525, plus 525. North Carolina and Clemson, they're still right there. That tells you everything you need to know about what people think of the rest of the ACC. And perhaps this has opened a little bit of a door for the Tar Heels.
I mean, look, maybe it has, and maybe, and I know, I don't think Florida State plays them, so it would have to be in the conference championship game,
right?
Because that's a 1-2 conference. But there's just not. I mean, that conference is not very good. It is an opening for Carolina. Like Clemson is, and John, like you said, the game's passed him by. Like his refusal, not inability, refusal to do anything remotely close to transfers or really wanting to get in the NIL space. I mean, I said this like the guy, he is Jack Easterby in a crew neck. That's what he is, man. That's all this guy is. He is just a charlatan. And he's if you give the rest of the world Trevor Lawrence and Deshaun Watson, you're gonna be fine. You're gonna find a way to win. And this guy is just, he's got a big bag of nothing.
Yeah, I think maybe the lesson learned here is if you were waiting around to see how the ACC Conference Championship market was going to play out, you're kind of all out of time unless something crazy happens in 3 weeks when Florida State visits Death Valley, or maybe even 3 weeks later when the Noles host Duke. Maybe that's, if you're looking for a dark horse in the ACC, like you said, John, maybe it's Duke, who is behind the aforementioned Florida State, Clemson, UNC, Louisville, Pittsburgh, NC State. Duke's all the way down there, 7th in the conference odds at 14-1. We're 1.5 weeks into the season, guys, and we're already talking about how bad the ACC is. This is not a good look for them.
No, but I also think Duke's good. I think they're. I don't think they're a fluke by any means. I mean, I know that Clemson had the red zone turnovers, and everybody's going to point to that. But variance went against Duke too. I mean, they had a couple stupid fumbles, the muff punt, the drive there where they fumbled it in Clemson territory. So variance went against Duke as well. They got an experienced defensive line. They got a really good quarterback there in Riley Leonard, who was mobile out there looking like Josh Allen. So, I mean, I think they're good. I think that's not going to be one where we look up and, say 3-4 weeks and say, man, what happened with Duke, I think is, now what does that mean for Duke? I don't know, but they're legit. They're a legit football program, I feel.
To bring it back around to North Carolina real quick, guys, before we wrap this up and get to some game previews, we found out Thursday night, Tez Walker still being denied by the NCAA. No immediate eligibility. It got Mack Brown so hot under the collar that he had to write a big old fat statement that ended in all caps. NCAA, shame on you. I picture him wagging his finger while he does that. Hey, here's the thing, though. As silly as it is, this big, long statement complaining about this, he's right. What does the NCAA exist for anymore but to throw up roadblocks like this? It's frustrating when you see guys eligible to play everywhere else across the board, and then all of a sudden this ruling comes down and Tez Walker is not eligible. Choppy.
Look, I don't know why they exist. They exist, I think, just to have us make fun of them. The fact that there's guys that are ineligible because they've already transferred once before and they want to be closer to home for a sick relative. Now, listen, I get it. All right, like this, if they allow it, it would open the door for everybody just to come on in and say, no, I want to transfer again. I got a sick relative nearby. I understand that. So I get it. They're just taking a blanket, zero tolerance policy on that. The NCAA is dumb, and I don't know why. I thought college football was done with it, to be honest with you. I thought we had moved on from the NCAA. We created our own college football playoff, and that is what controls college football. But apparently the NCAA still sticks their little noses in it and everything.
Yeah, and it's not going to get any better until they absolutely get completely out from underneath the thumb. We got games to preview. We mentioned Colorado. They host Nebraska, Texas A&M, Miami, Oregon, Texas Tech, and the big one, Longhorns and the Tide, all on the way right here on BetQLU. And welcome back in live coast to coast on the BetQL network. It is BetQLU. Don't forget, we're in your Odyssey app, not just live in the Odyssey app, AUDACY. It's free. Download it today. But as a podcast as well, once we're done giving you the show live, you can then go and download it. And literally anytime this weekend, you can listen to us and listen to all the previews we have, everything we got, all the action on the weekend in college football as we head into week 2. And we got game-specific previews to get to here, especially a big one, a big honking game in Tuscaloosa. Number 4 Crimson Tide hosts the number 11 Longhorns. We'll get to that one. We'll get to Oregon, Texas Tech, as well as Texas A&M at Miami. It feels like a loser goes home kind of game. And let's start with one we already touched on, guys. But another Fox big noon kickoff for the Colorado Buffaloes. This one at home against the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Colorado favored by 3. Total sits up near 60, 59.5. It is the second most bet football game of the entire weekend, including Thursday night's Chiefs-Lions NFL opener. John, I think you mentioned this earlier. Preseason line was all the way up to Nebraska minus 8.5. After just one game, that thing has completely flipped around and done a 180. We mentioned it earlier. The only action on Colorado now might be to fade the Buffaloes, unless you think this is more than just one game against, as RJ calls them, the horned frauds. You think this is a forebear of more to come from Colorado. John, when you look at this one, is it fade Colorado, lean on Nebraska? I mean, do we trust the Cornhuskers to score enough points on the road to beat Colorado? Yeah,
I mean, I hate this because this is where you just have to sort of. That's the thing about being successful as a sports bettor sometimes is like you have to suspend your own disbelief, right? Because if we take what each team did in week 1. I have this nowhere close to Colorado minus 3. If I'm just using, my eyeballs, I have this more like Colorado 7.5, Colorado 8.5, just again, based on the eye test of week 1. But it's never that easy. I didn't get to watch a ton of the Nebraska game. I watched almost all of the Colorado game because I want to protect myself. I have to protect my mental health, so I'm not trying to watch Nebraska football. But again, I know it was low score. I know it came down to some wacky stuff at the end there. Again, this should not be a short line here based on that, but it still is. So that tells me that Nebraska's got advantages here somewhere, whether it be in the trenches, whether it be just with their defense overall. We know how much action Colorado is getting. I just feel like if I am playing this game, I am just going to have to take the points here with Nebraska. Now I haven't. But I just feel like if you're going to play this game, I just feel like sometimes when it makes no sense, it just happens, I don't know. That's my experience. It's like simplifying it, but nothing about this number makes sense. Make it make sense to me, RJ.
It doesn't. And that's why, that's how Vegas wins, right? But I'll tell you this, all right? Is Colorado so far? They are generally, we generally always fade the public, right? We fade the public hype. That's why maybe fading in the NFL, fading the Lions or the Jets might be the smart thing, right? This year, public hype is very, very high on them. Fade the hype. Well, the public was all over Colorado on the over for the season win total, and they seem to be all over this game too, and they were all over the first game. Maybe Colorado is the one spot where the computers and Vegas is wrong and the public is actually right on this one. They are buying the hype because I'm with you. Like, the number doesn't make sense to me because if you just look at the week 1, it should be more like at least 6.5. 7.
Touchdown, right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
This is 3 points. It almost looks like too good to be true. Like they know something that we don't. Like it's a sucker. I don't know, man. It's a tough one.
For me.
Go ahead, Chris.
Go ahead, John. No.
I was going to say, like, there's nothing. Colorado's got 2 Heisman candidates. Guys that have just shot up And there was nothing dynamic whatsoever about this Nebraska team, right? And yet here we are. So, it really stinks to high heavens.
This is one where I walk away and I just literally wash my hands of it. Like learning my lessons from last week, from leaning on TCU, from leaning on LSU, and watching both of them go down in flames. This is one where I remind myself, hey, you know what, Chris? Maybe the first 3-4 weeks of the college football season, you don't know crap because it's the first 3-4 weeks of a college football season, and as much change as we have in the game. Like, this is another thing I think people need to consider. We talk about rule changes. We talk about conference changes. We talk about this, that, the other. This is not our uncles, our fathers, our granddads' college football. You look at the amount of turnover you get on rosters from year to year. It's like you said earlier, Choppy, that Sonny Dykes admitted they didn't watch a single frame of Colorado tape. I get it, because not one of those guys he was going to see on last year's Colorado tape was going to be out there on the field Saturday in Fort Worth. So it makes no sense to watch that tape. You could say the same about so many teams. And so I have now, to an extent, guys, recused myself to, I might just spend this week watching to see if what I think actually carries any credence whatsoever. And I get it. We're supposed to be the experts. We're down here. We're here telling you about our opinions. I still have opinions, but I am also safe in telling you that those can blow up like that in week 1, in week 2, in week 3. And I think that's the lesson to be learned from last week in Colorado, TCU, in Clemson, Duke, in LSU, Florida State is, man, this early in the season, it'll blow up in your face in an instant.
I generally try to take, 3-4 weeks before I really dive in, like dive in. You just don't. I'm a numbers better. I'm a computer. I use I like look at various computer models and stuff. And there's nothing on Colorado. If you're betting on Colorado right now, if you're betting on any team right now, but especially them, you are doing so just off of emotion. That's a dangerous way to bet. I never bet on my team. I never place a wager on my team. If I want to place a wager against them, that way I win either way, I might do that. But I never, because I can't separate the emotion from it. And if you're betting on Colorado, I mean, fine, do it. That's great. Knock yourself out, do what you want to do. But you are betting strictly on emotion at this point.
Right. And I think I was just gonna say I think a good thing, like just generally in doing this and betting sports, is like updating your priors. Like our priors right now are that Nebraska is awful and Colorado is amazing. It's just not. It's not that easy, man. It's not that easy. It's not that simple.
Yeah. And to bring us around to the next game, I don't know what to make of A&M and Miami either. Texas A&M visiting Coral Gables. Jimbo Fisher under an immense amount of pressure. I mean, you got to be under a ton of pressure bringing Bobby Petrino to be your OC. Connor Weigman looked pretty good against New Mexico, 18-23, 236 yards, 5 touchdowns. Tyler Van Dyke looked pretty good against Miami of Ohio for the Canes, 38-3. They won. But this is like I said, this is a loser goes home kind of match. This is, I don't want to cook somebody's season at 1-1, especially in the ACC in Miami's case. But like, you lose this game, there's a whole lot of soul searching. Aggies are favored by 4, totals at 51.5. John.
Yeah, this game actually was it opened up at I believe Miami plus 7.5, and that's been bet all the way down. I mean, summer openers are, how much stock do you put into that, right? Like everybody's betting an opinion in the summertime when we don't know as much. But I don't know. Like this is not a spot I would have any interest in Texas A&M and their quarterback situation right now. I mean, it's time for a big win for Mario Cristobal and this Miami team. And I think based on sort of the number movement, which has come down pretty drastically for Miami, if I'm going to play it, I don't have a play on this one, but if I were to, it would be on Miami and the points without a doubt.
Yeah, I don't have a play on this one either. I don't trust A&M, and I don't trust Jimbo Fisher. I don't trust Bobby Petrino as far as he can throw me off his motorcycle. I don't trust it at all. But I also know this, like, early in the year, going down to Miami, like any Miami has no home field anyway. We already know that they've never had one. And it's just not it's not something that's advantageous to them. I would stay away from this game. Like, I don't trust Miami, but I certainly don't trust Jimbo Fisher and Petrino and A&M right now.
After everything we've talked about now with these last two games, I'm here to tell you that I am in on one team in one of these game previews that we're going to talk about, and it's Oregon. Number 15 Ducks going to Lubbock to face Texas Tech. They lost to Wyoming on Saturday night in what was one of those classic, I'm going to stay up late and watch this thing just to see how quickly it burns to the ground kind of games. Meanwhile, Bo Nix, 20-1 to win the Heisman for Oregon, went 23 of 27, 287, 3 touchdowns. They put up 81 on Portland State. Okay, I'll pump the brakes just a little bit, but Oregon looks like Oregon, and the Pac-12 looks like in their final year together, they are going to produce multiple teams that can scare the pants off you. And Oregon going in, I don't care if it's on the road, 6.5 is not a big enough number for me to stay away from Oregon, John.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan. I actually, Dan Lanning spent some time here at Memphis under Mike Norvell, so I got a chance to sort of see what he's all about. And look, the question with Oregon is not whether or not they can freaking score. I mean, that's never been the question mark.
Right.
This is probably a spot where I would be willing to back the road team. I don't love doing that, but I am just so uninspired by Texas Tech this year. Their quarterback, I mean, I do think the points will be scored because their quarterback can sling it, but I just don't believe they're very good. So Oregon under a touchdown is something that I would probably have to go with here.
The intrigue, the anticipation for this season for Texas Tech around here was huge. They were expected to be the dark horse Big 12 candidate. They were hoping to be last year's TCU team. That was the dumbest scheduling decision I've ever seen. Why go to Laramie the week before you host a major opponent? Like, they didn't even get off the bus in Laramie. Dumb. They are a much better team than what they showed last week. I was initially all over Tech in this game. I still am leaning Tech in this game. Coach McGuire, I think he's a really good mind. But Oregon's clearly the better team. I just think we completely looked past what Tech should have done last week, and that is cancel that football game and schedule somebody else. There is no reason they went to Laramie the week before they were going to play one of the biggest non-conference home game. Like, you don't get teams coming to Lubbock. Nobody wants to. They just got alcohol like a month ago. You're not getting teams going to Lubbock. I can't believe that they went there.
And the Big 12 didn't exactly bathe themselves in glory because you had Baylor losing to Texas State. I mean, the conference dynamics after this week one are really something to watch. And maybe we wouldn't be watching it as much in a year where we don't have all the movement, John, but like it feels like the ACC and Big 12 are looking around going, is anybody going to want to win this conference? I know it's early. They haven't even played each other yet in most cases. But you got that, and then you got the Pac-12 going out in just a blaze of glory. Like, we're going to light up scoreboards. Everybody's going to win. Again, it's 1 week and mostly non-con games scheduled, but I'm looking around going, what the hell happened? What the hell happened in the Big 12? What happened in the ACC? I thought those would be two conferences with really strong middles, if nothing else.
Yep. Yeah, both of those leagues are going to be trash. Obviously, ACC is, SMU's paying for play there. They're going to get in and they're going to be a bottom feeder. And then once the heavy hitters in the Big 12 leave for the SEC, that is going to be a mess. Houston could barely get past UTSA at the crib over the weekend. It's all bad. It's going to be SEC. It's going to be Big 10, and we'll figure out what to do with the rest of them.
Yeah, the Big 12 is just a basketball conference. They are. You know,
We're on the hoops.
We're on the hoops, man. We're on. Let's try to get UConn in here. Let's try to get Gonzaga on in here. And let's make it happen, man. Right. Let's do it.
Exactly.
What's Creighton doing? Can we just suck up the Big East too while we're at it?
Yeah, no, just replace Nebraska with Creighton. It's fine.
Both of these conferences, that's what they've become, is a team or two that rotate through at the top. And like you said, John, this is something to keep an eye on. And we're gonna preview the Texas-Bama game next in just a minute. But keep an eye on the ACC, because I said this last week and nobody wants to hear it, but man, once Florida State and Clemson and maybe even North Carolina jump, like you said, once those big dogs jump to the SEC or maybe UNC to the Big Ten or however it works out in a few years, because it will happen in a few years, they're going to become nothing more than another American athletic conference. That's all they're going to be. Texas, Bama, 7.5 Texas and Bama in Tuscaloosa. We touch on a rematch of one of last year's classics, and we do that next right here on BetQLU. And welcome back in live coast to coast on the BetQL network. It is BetQLU. I'm Chris Mack alongside RJ Choppy and John Martin. We've got you covered as we preview everything going on in college football as we transition from week 1 to week 2. And we'll get to the Big Daddy on this weekend, Bama, Texas, in just a moment. We'll also get you our best bets as well. Mine going to include, I hope you guys will bear with me, a surprise. I see it playing out this way already, and it kind of piggybacks off of what we talked about with the weaknesses in the Big 12 and the ACC. That coming up in just a few minutes. Our best bets before we wrap up this edition of BetQLU, which if you're watching it on YouTube, youtube.com, Odyssey Sports, or twitch.tv/BetQL. You can also get it as a podcast inside your Odyssey app, AUDACY. You can see the Odyssey on the wall right behind me there, AUDACY. That's how you spell it. Download the app. It's free. And then find BetQLU and follow the podcast and make sure you get notified every time there are new episodes available. Guys, this is a rematch of what was, I thought, a classic early season matchup last year. Texas, a second-half lead. Quinn Ewers leaves the game, though, and then Bama comes back and does Alabama things. Number 4, Crimson Tide, hosting this one, though, 7 o'clock kickoff against the number 11 Longhorns. Alabama favored by 7.5. John, total sits at 56.5. Too much, not enough. What's your read on Texas, Bama, and the 7.5?
See, man, this is just one of those games where I know it's not great for our show. You know what I mean? It's like, have a take on the spread of Texas Bama. But it's like how can I? Like, Quinn Ewers couldn't complete a pass downfield for 15 yards against Rice. And yes, Bama is at home, but it's not Bryce Young. It's Jalen Miller, who looked good, but it was, again, MTSU. So it's like I have a very incomplete package of data that I'm working with on both of these teams on a number that, like, feels just right to me. I will say, last season, I felt like Texas might have been well on their way to pulling that off until, Quinn Ewers got hurt there in the first quarter. But this is an entirely different game, and it's in Tuscaloosa, which is a whole different animal. So, if you forced me here, I would probably take the 7.5 with Texas and feel bad about it. Like, I'm not sitting here like running outside streaking naked that I got a hook with Texas football here. But it's really just not one that I would have a ton of interest in getting involved with, to be honest.
I don't have a ton of, like, I'll tell you this. I think Texas, I think we have completely, look at Bama. We've completely just ignored maybe that Bama's on their downslope. I'm not a fan of the quarterback play. Their secondary, they've got good corners. Their safeties are trash. I don't feel like they're as good on the lines and as dominant on the lines as they used to be, as vintage Bama. Saban's he's still the GOAT, but it just feels like this is kind of, if you're going to get them, like this is the time to get them. I think they were kind of saved last year by Anderson and by Bryce Young. They were in some games that were close that they probably should have lost, and they great. They lost to LSU, they lost to Tennessee. They easily could have won both of those games. So it's not like they're. I think we're kind of going to go to the other side of that, and I'll trust Texas 2 years after they show me that they can actually withstand this. But they're a good team. Like, Texas has got a ton of talent. There's a ton of excitement here. I think this game goes under. I don't like either quarterback a ton. I know the Bama secondary may not be great, but I don't like either quarterback enough to take the over in this one. So I will lean on the under, and I'll take this. I'll take the 7.5. I'll take Texas with the 7.5.
Yeah, you know what? I could see the under too, especially based on the pacing that we saw for both of these teams in the first half against each other last year. That wouldn't shock me. But to your point, Choppy, I can't trust Texas. I just can't. I want to look at this, and for all the reasons you guys just described, go 7.5. Okay, give it to me. But A, we're in Tuscaloosa, and B, I can't trust Sark and I can't trust the Horns until I see it happen a couple of times. If this game is being played in Austin again, I'll take the hook and I will run naked through the streets celebrating getting the hook. Not just because I want to piss off the neighbors, because hey, I got a hook and they're playing in Austin and I got a chance. But this one's in Tuscaloosa, and I don't like that. This ends up being like a I don't know, like a 31-21 kind of game where, I liken it a lot to the Chiefs in that how often in the last year and a half, 2 seasons have we seen the Kansas City Chiefs play a game that they ended up winning by 4 or 5, but it felt like they dominated most of the game and it felt like they won by 10, but they only won by 4 or 5. Like, I could see this being one of those games where Bama dominates most of the game and it feels like they won by 2 touchdowns. And, they only won by 6, 7, 8 points. It's going to be right around that number, but it won't feel like it. It will feel like Bama dominated, I think. And for nothing else, I don't want to be sitting there around 10:30 Saturday night, all sweaty, thinking, man, are the Horns going to get me a cover? No, I'm not there for that. No, thank you. I can't trust them, John.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the total same boat. Now, that being said, I mean, I think that Quinn could be a big game guy, like in the times that I have watched him. But then you have the whole former assistant thing going with Sark and Bama, and it's just like, man, there's I want to be honest, right? When we do this show, I'm not betting every game on the board, and you shouldn't be either. You know what I mean? No. You shouldn't be doing that either. Right. So there are so many other games that, maybe aren't as – like, I like to sit back, guys, and watch that game. You know what I mean? I like to watch it. It's high level. It's also the sharpest number probably of the weekend. I'm just trying to be transparent about, the difficulty in betting a game like this. So and by the way, our best bets are killing it. We haven't lost a best bet this season, any of us. But in terms of this one, it's just there's not enough there for me on either side really to get involved. I'm gonna sit back and watch, and maybe I'll extrapolate something from it and use it down the road.
Choppy. Did you hear him use that big word, extrapolate? I didn't.
I did. That's I don't know.
Right over my head.
This guy is using vocabulary. That's right.
Man, I went to a Big Ten school, boys. I went to a Big Ten school. That is right over my head.
Raider fans don't use big words like that.
That's right.
That's for dang sure. Look, I love what Sark said though, because you brought up the Saban and the assistants. He was like, dude, because he's like 28-2 against assistants, right? Yeah. He's like, dude, he's like 28-2 against everybody else anyway. Like he just,
for sure.
His if you look at and think about it, his assistants generally get SEC jobs. They take over bad programs.
Very true. Very true.
Tennessee hired Jeremy Pruitt. So of course you're going to bludgeon them. And I love the pettiness. I love the pettiness of putting all the Texas fans in the upper deck. I love that. It's payback. It's payback here, man. You can't do that next year when they become a conference member and you got to put 2,000 in the lower bowl.
Man, I can't wait to see the petty get turned up to like 11.5 when these teams are in the same conference. It's going to be glorious. All right, let's get to our best bets for the week. Let's each take a moment or two, explain what we got, what we do like on the board, why we like it, and what we're going with. John, I'll let you start us.
I am rolling with, and again, I bet these a little earlier in the week, but if I give it out at that number, it's still good. And again, it's a little off the beaten path here, but I am going Georgia Southern. I bet it at -5.5. They're hosting UAB. This is Trent Dilfer's first road game as the coach at UAB, and I just don't believe in UAB at all. I think this is just a great spot for Georgia Southern. Still 7.5. I think this is margin. I think they probably get this done by 10 or more. I don't believe in Trent Dilfer at UAB. So I am going Georgia Southern right now, -7.5.
I like that. I like that a lot. Choppy, what do you got for a best bet or best bets? Are you sitting there digging up your FCS schedule again?
No, I'm not digging that one up. I'm gonna take sexy Sammy Hartman at Notre Dame.
Sam's
minus you might be able to get it at 7. I'm seeing it at 7.5. But I also have my patented pizza money parlay for you. Just bet $10. It's a slice of pizza or it's a whole pizza. $10 will win you $260. Vanderbilt money line, Northwestern money line, and UMass money line. $10 wins you $260.
Damn. I'm sorry. I just had a little something come up in the back of my throat when you finished that off with UMass and Northwestern.
That's like a pizza with anchovies right there.
Right. That's right. Do what you got to do.
That's one of those take and bakes they don't even put in the oven, and then you got to take it home and put it in the oven, and then it's undercooked or it's burnt all the way. Damn. All right. Well, here's what I got for you. And there's a scenario playing itself out in my head. Maybe I'm totally wrong about this. Just like, who knows? I played that Oregon State scenario out in my head a couple times before the season started, or right as the season started, telling everybody, hey, watch Oregon State, motivation, being one of the teams that doesn't, move on to a Power 5 conference with a Pac-12. I believe in them and their defense and DJU. But this, I can see playing itself out and just being hilarious to watch, because we just got done talking about Texas. Texas and Oklahoma, their final year in the Big 12, right, before they move off to the SEC. Well, they've got 4 new schools in the Big 12 now as well. And UCF looked pretty good in their opener. Like, I get it. It's UCF, so maybe you don't want to put too much stock in that. And who'd they beat? Kent State. Okay, they beat Kent State by 50, though. And they look pretty good. Mason Plumlee, 281 through the air. And what happened? Hold on, let me just double check. Who do they got? Oh, they're going out west to Boise. Boise got smoked. Dog walked by Washington. Michael Penix Jr., legit Heisman contender, threw for 450 and 5 touchdowns. 56-19. They exploded in the second quarter, and they threw icing on the cake in the fourth quarter with 3 more touchdowns. Boise's not good this year. UCF is good, and UCF is going to shock the world and go to the Big 12 title game. I don't know if they're going to win the conference, but I'm calling it now. UCF is going to the Big 12 title game, and they continue to roll this week at Boise. UCF only laying 3.5 at Boise. Give it to me. Yes, please. I'm like Rick James in the Chappelle's Show sketch. Just give it to me. UCF minus 3.5. Yes, please. UCF minus 3.5 at Boise. That's my best bet this week. You guys can make fun of me next week when I'm totally wrong. Cool?
I like it, actually. I like it a lot.
Hopefully they're not bringing their social media director there with them, but whatever.
Keep that off limits. All right. Another exciting edition of BetQLU in the books. You know you can get it anytime you want now inside your Odyssey app, AUDACY. And of course, we are live every Friday night, coast to coast, and Saturday morning on the BetQL network. You know you can get it on YouTube early Thursday nights. Yes, late Thursday nights, we get it up for you as well. We'll do it again next weekend. Following week 2 and looking into week 3 alongside John Martin and RJ Choppy, I'm Chris Mack. Thank you for joining us for another edition of BetQLU.